Hello and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. Y'all, thank you so much for joining me on this March 1st, which is crazy to see. Oh my gosh. March 1. Happy March, everybody. We are going to be moving through lesson 60 in A Course in Miracles, and this is our final review day. We've been over the last 10 days, we've been doing a full review from lesson 1 up through lesson 50 in A Course in Miracles. And we are going to just start with a quick refresher of the high level lessons, starting with lesson 21 through today's lesson. And then we'll do a deeper dive where today's lesson will have 5 recaps and 5 summaries associated with it. So let's go ahead and dive in. Lesson 21 review. Lesson 21, I am determined to see things differently. Lesson 22, what I see is a form of vengeance. Lesson 23, I can escape from this world by giving up attack thoughts. Lesson 24, I do not perceive my own best interests. Lesson 25, I do not know what anything is for. Lesson 26, my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. Lesson 27, above all else, I want to see. Lesson 28, above all else, I want to see differently. Lesson 29, God is in everything I see. Lesson 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Lesson 31, I am not the victim of the world I see. Lesson 32, I have invented the world I see. Lesson 33, there is another way of looking at the world. Lesson 34, I could see peace instead of this. Lesson 35, my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Lesson 36, my holiness envelops everything I see. Lesson 37, my holiness blesses the world. Lesson 38, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. Lesson 39, my holiness is my salvation. Lesson 40, I am blessed as a son of God. Lesson 41, God goes with me wherever I go. Lesson 42, God is my strength. Vision is his gift. Lesson 43, God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Lesson 44, God is the light in which I see. Lesson 45, God is the mind with which I think. Now, for today's lesson. Lesson 46, God is the love in which I forgive. God does not forgive because he has never condemned. The blameless cannot blame, and those who have accepted their innocence see nothing to forgive. Yet forgiveness is the means by which I will recognize my innocence. It is the reflection of God's love on earth. It will bring me near enough to heaven that the love of God can reach down to me and raise me up to him. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. It is not my own strength through which I forgive. It is through the strength of God in me, which I am remembering as I forgive. As I begin to see, I recognize his reflection on earth. I forgive all things because I feel the stirring of his strength in me, and I begin to remember the love I chose to forget, but which has not forgotten me. Lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. How safe the world will look to me now when I see it. It will not look anything like what I imagine I see now. Everyone and everything I see will lean toward me to bless me. I will recognize in everyone my dearest friend. What could there be to fear in a world that I have forgiven and that has forgiven me? Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. There is not a moment in which God's voice ceases to call on my forgiveness to save me. There is not a moment in which his voice fails to direct my thoughts, guide my actions, and lead my feet. I am walking steadily on toward truth. There is nothing else I can go, nowhere else I can go, because God's voice is the only voice and the only guide that has been given to his son. Lesson 50, I am sustained by the love of God. As I listen to God's voice, I am sustained by his love. As I open my eyes, his love lights up the world for me to see. As I forgive, his love reminds me that his son is sinless. And as I look upon the world with the vision he has given me, I remember that I am his son. Y'all, good morning. I'm so glad you're here with me. I'm I'm looking at each one of these 5 lessons and even the preceding ones leading up to today's, and I'm just really reminded how much, I had this thought while I was reading this, that in practicing these truths, in memorizing them, in hiding them in our heart, there's this verse that says, "I have hidden your word in my heart, so I will not sin against you." And sin, the actual root of that word, means missing the mark. It doesn't mean something horrific. It's just like, oh, that wasn't exactly in alignment with my ideal or God's ideal. And when we sin, it's simply not the best, right? It's like, oh, that's actually not the ideal. That's not what is the best choice for me. And then we kind of feel the ramifications of it. Growing up, I always thought of sin as some like big looming horrifying thing that we do, rather than, oh, it's anything that's not the ideal in so many ways. And so when we are able to adopt the lens of God and see the world through his eyes, and this concept of hiding his word in our heart, like, God is the love in which I forgive. Like, I'm not going to be able to forgive to the fullest extent if it's not powered and rooted by love. If there's any fear in me towards other people, or even fear towards God, that forgiveness is never going to be truly pure. It's going to be shrouded and kind of corroded. And so when we have these truths hidden away, God is the strength in which I trust. The next one, lesson 48, there is nothing to fear. Lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Lesson 50, I am sustained by the love of God. Hiding these things in our hearts and meditating on them and really bringing them to mind when we need it. I've got a couple of different mantras in my life that really guide me, so that in the moment when I really need to remember the truth, I've got it easily accessible. One of those is the concept of, this is for me. Everything that happens in my life, there is intention, there is reason, there is no accident. Like even yesterday, to be honest with you, yesterday I had this wonderful party that I co-hosted with my dad. And I just had to trust at the end of the day, like anything that happens, I have to trust that that's exactly what should be happening. And it's going to be for me no matter what. And there's some stories, both stories in current day, but also biblical stories that have really rang true in that regard. There's this line where it's on the heels of the story of a man who had 11 brothers, and he was kind of a little bit of he was annoying. Like, he kind of had these dreams that really positioned him as like the leader, and his brothers were like, you're like 12, you're so annoying. And so he would tell his brothers his dreams that he would have, where he was like, you're all bowing to me. Isn't that weird? And they're like, yeah, that's weird. We're going to throw you in a pit. And so they like literally take this kid, throw him in a pit, because not only was he as annoying with his dreams, but also he was his dad's favorite. And his dad literally, which didn't help at all, made him a coat with like beautiful colors, and the rest of his brothers are just wearing like normal clothes. And so they tear up his coat and pretend like he was killed by like a wild animal, and they sell him. And so he goes to Egypt. He was living in a different country. He goes to Egypt as a slave. He gets purchased, and he's working in the second in command of all of Egypt, working in his house. So not a bad gig, right? But as he grows up, I think he was 17 when he got sold at this time. And when he grows up and gets a little bit older, the second in command, his wife, tries to like seduce this kid. And the kid's like, no. But then she pretends that he tried to rape her, which is like horrifying. He gets thrown in jail. He's in jail for, I think, a total of 7 years. It might have been longer. And during that time, he's just like, what, WTF? Like, what the heck is going on? Like, God, how could you forget me? And during that time, yesterday we were talking about contending with God. So often those times where, just like how he was in prison, times when we're in the wilderness, times where it's like, I'm literally in the ashes. This is the dark night of the soul. That is the very place where transformation really can occur, so long as we let it, so long as we were talking yesterday about pouring out the soul and pouring out what's been kind of bottled up within us. And so if we're allowing for this time and space, whether we find ourselves literally in a physical prison, whether we find ourselves just like in a season of life where it's the wilderness and it's lonely and dark and isolating and painful, and it's kind of like the ashes of our life, that time, that transformation so often it's actually preparing us for something. You know, my greatest devastation is actually the very place in which I found my purpose. And that's where people have this mantra of like, you get pain, from pain we get purpose. And I found that to be so true for me. In the ashes comes the beauty. It's this whole story about the phoenix rising. Well, the phoenix has to have a place from which it rises. You only get that to that point of greatness if you've actually fallen, because in the falling, in the cultivation of like burrowing out and hollowing out what needs to go within us. Otherwise, it's we're going to be building on a faulty foundation. We're going to be building and striving towards a dream or a vision or something great, where it's kind of on that poor foundation, so that when the winds do come, when the going gets tough, when we do encounter something really, really hard, we've got no foundation to stand on, and the whole house, everything we've built up, gets blown away. And so these moments of this kid, going back to that story of the kid in Pharaoh, he's locked up in jail, but he still keeps having these dreams. And so as he's having these dreams, he actually interprets other people's dreams for them. And what ends up happening is that he gets called up to go to see Pharaoh at the time, and he interprets a dream for Pharaoh and is like, "Hey, you're going to actually experience a season of so much plenty and so much abundance. For 7 years, you're going to have this, and then on the other side of that, you're actually going to have 7 years of drought and famine. And so you need to like really build up the food and the abundance. Don't eat it all. Don't spend it all. Like save." And so the guy Pharaoh actually makes him now second in command, and he gets to really help Pharaoh for 14 years. He's in this role of honor and leadership. And so during the time of drought, who comes by to get food from Pharaoh but his 11 brothers? And when he sees his 11 brothers, there's this moment of reconciliation. They don't recognize him. It's been what, 20 years, 25 years since they've seen him. And and through that time, he has this exchange with his brothers, and what he ends up telling them, because they, when he's like, "Hey, I'm your brother," he saves his whole family, but he also saves the whole nation because of this dream telling, because of those years locked up. He said to his brothers, and this is the point, he said, "What you intended for evil, God intended for good." And so even if every people are literally plotting against us, even if that's the case, if we're really truly walking in alignment with who we are supposed to be, with who we're called to be, with who God made us to be, and we're actively pursuing, like, okay, what is my ideal? What am I called to do? And we're moving in that direction, then we really can trust that no matter what man does to us, there is going to be good that comes out of every single thing that happens in our lives. Like literally, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. And this is what's so incredible. That's where this other verse which says, "I have peace that surpasses understanding." It doesn't make sense that I would feel peace in this season of life because it's so awful. I'm, for this guy, he's locked up in jail. For other people, I'm literally, my husband passed away, or I lost my dad, or I've been, God forbid, I've been, sexually assaulted. Like, for all of us, whatever our story is, there is the promise and the hope of redemption. But it requires what we talked about today in our lessons of God is the strength in which I trust. God is the love in which I forgive. We can't do it alone. And so if we are willing to be co-creators with Christ, with God, and say, "Okay, God, I want to create meaning from this pain. Will you help me? I want to create beauty from the ashes. Will you help me? I want to find the purpose in the pain. Will you help me do that?" So there's this openness of like, "God, will you show me? And I'm going to do the work." It's a both and. It's us being faithful and taking radical responsibility over our lives, over the pursuit of healing, over the pursuit of growth, over the pursuit of forgiveness in and of itself. Y'all, somebody came on. I don't know if I've seen him since this. He shared, he was like, "I'm really struggling with forgiveness. My wife killed our 3-year-old son, and she's in jail right now." And all of us, this was a couple weeks ago, and we were all just like, whoa, like that's a whole level of forgiveness that I've never even dreamed of having to consider. That is, you cannot forgive on your own like that. And then, us all on the show, we were like, okay, let's define terms. What do you mean by forgiveness? Because it's not that it's fine what they did. It's not that there's no cost. It's not that, that forgiveness does not mean accepting what the other action of that other person is as fine or acceptable. What it is in forgiveness, it's actually releasing ourselves just as much as releasing the other person. It's like, you know what? I'm going to either let the legal system handle it. I'm going to let God handle it. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that justice is served. And at the same time, no longer does what you did, does it have power over me? Because for so long as we've got a noose around the other person's neck, so long as we're like holding onto their collar and saying, pay me what you owe me, we're actually tethered to them. We're holding on to them just as much as they're existing, like we're actually the ones tethering and tying ourselves to them with our lack of forgiveness. So forgiveness is the letting go and like, I'm actually not going to be forever tied to you by anger and bitterness and resentment. And that forgiveness, that ability to be able to let go. It's like this guy who was in jail for 7 years. He could have rotted away and gotten so bitter so that the next time a dream came about that somebody's like, hey, I had a dream. Does anybody understand? He could have been like, screw you all. My brothers threw me in jail or sold me because I interpreted dreams. He could have done that. But this is the power of redemption. This is the power of forgiveness, is that then those things that maybe even got us into those situations to begin with, whether it was by our own doing or not, but we can alchemize and add to our gifts and really build upon who did God make me to be? Because again, in the pain we find the purpose, and sometimes in the purpose is also like we come to know, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this about myself to begin with, but that pain, that gravity of pain like kind of ripped me open. That's how I felt so much. Like I felt like when my husband left, I just had never accessed my soul. I'd never accessed me. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to look in the mirror and see what I did to contribute to the ending of our marriage. And in so doing, I got to know who God made me to be in the first place, because I've been living under this false identity and this false self. And the false self we all do, we're taught who to be and how to be since we were kids. We learn survival modes. We learn how to engage with family. We learn how to engage with each other. And so we learn this false identity. And then at some point, it's like, okay, stripping away what's false and returning to, okay, this is who God made me to be. And sometimes, ideally, we've got parents and loved ones that help us grow into who we were created to be. But sometimes we take on these different personas and qualities just to make it through the family life or the day or the school environment, what have you. So with that, I'm just going to take a few minutes to jump into the chat. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Feet, I'm glad to see you. Wayne, good morning. Danny, I'm just scrolling down so that Hadashell, good to see you. Wayne says, I lived with false identity and a false self for 20 years. It's so hard to undo that. And at the same time, there's so much on the other side of when you actually start discovering, oh my gosh, like it's so exciting. Like this is who God made me to be. The pain is a containment of suppressed feelings, which is the pressure you feel. Proco. Such a good word. The pain is the containment of the suppressed feelings, which is the pressure you feel. Oh, I'm actually going to pin this. Although somebody said it, I guess somebody said that they couldn't see the other comments if I pinned it, so I won't pin it. But the thing I really, really like about that is that if you're putting a lid on it and keeping it suppressed, to your point, Proco, like I just love this visual you just gave. Pain is like we're containing the pain inside, but it's like the suppressed feelings, and then the pain is a byproduct of the suppressed feelings. I love that. That's so good. Mayan, your take on forgiveness was spot on. I'm so glad, and I'd love to hear. Oh, Domino, no problem. I'd love to hear, y'all's take on forgiveness, because this conversation around forgiveness and this conversation around healing and what does it mean to really let go is so important, because each one of us has there's so much context that adds to it. So I would love to know, what would you guys add to the forgiveness conversation. I'd really, really love to learn from you guys from past experience. So yeah, I would love to hear that. Sun Moon, attached and ego is the same problem as the human problem. Attachment. Man, isn't that so true? So attachment, just to dig into that a little bit, Sun Moon, I'm glad you brought that up. Attachment, actually, isn't this interesting? Perhaps in the attachment to the problem, attachment to the pain, or even the suppressed feelings, attachment to the other person, that's what can keep us tethered to something. So it's like, I actually didn't want to let go of the grief that I held when my brother-in-law was killed. And so it's like, okay, am I going to keep this like relationship with grief to the point of my lack of healing, for the lack of me being able to let go and move forward? Am I going to remain tethered? And I think that that's actually, I just love that you said attachment, because attachment really can be the very thing that like keeps you so incredibly stuck. So I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Stumpy, good morning. Happy day. Hey, good to see you. I was thinking about you last night and this morning. I'm glad you're back. Domino, thank you. Richards, good morning. It's been so long. Good morning, everyone. It's negative 23 degrees outside at my house. Oh, remember, things could always be worse. Oh, geez. So awful. So cold. I'm looking over here at my niece. She's over here reading everybody. She's 11. Alyssa Rose. I love you. Toronto. Wayne says, yes, the pain is the byproduct of suppressed feelings. So, it's funny because, to be honest, it's easy to think I've got this pain rather than because I'm suppressing unprocessed emotions, I've got pain. That's a complete shift. And that's actually so important, because in the pouring out of the feelings and of the soul of like, let me release everything, the lymphatic system. So we've got the lymphatic system that kind of like washes our body. The lymphatic system happens every 12 hours or through deep breathing, which I didn't never know, which is so cool. The lymphatic system literally washes our brain out, and it like releases the waste and toxins built up in our mind. That's why sleep is so incredibly important. The lymphatic system does it for the rest of the body. There is no washing or cleansing of the soul apart from you and I doing the work. And so when we think about the lymphatic system that is so necessary for like the physical, we need that for the emotional. And we also, honestly, we probably need that for the intellectual as well. Part of what we're doing here on the Knowing Show is introducing new programs. It's introducing new patterns, new thoughts, new ways of being, new narratives. Because a lot of times, what actually keeps that pain, which is the lid and suppression of the feelings, is really this misunderstanding around how emotions work. It's a misunderstanding of the importance of moving through them and how to even do that. We're not taught emotional intelligence in schools. We're taught intellectual intelligence, but not emotional intelligence. And y'all, we are 50% is emotional. And relationships are emotional. And how many of us have had partners, want to have partners, have kids, want to have kids? So much of life is relational. And if we don't learn how to cultivate our own emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is twofold. The first half of emotional intelligence is the ability to be aware of, to understand and convey one's own emotions, and the ability, second half, to handle interpersonal relationships with empathy and with wisdom. If we don't know who we are, there's no way that we're going to be able to be authentic to even have like an open connection with other people. And if we're suppressing the pain, so often that suppression, I'm going to change it, suppressing the feelings that lends to pain, then so often we're actually not able to be free to engage with other people with empathy. Because if they've got pain, we're so clouded and corroded by our own, we cannot sit with them in theirs. And we also can't be of any use as well. If they're stuck and we're stuck, it's just like, honestly, the sick healing the sick, like how I was for so many years after my brother-in-law. I was trying to tend to everybody in my life and love everybody in my life, but I wasn't actually doing that for me. Going back to the chat, the Rebel Priest. Hello. Forgiveness can bring physical healing as well as unforgiving can hinder wholeness. Y'all, isn't that the truth? I have a friend, she had arthritis so bad in her hands. She was under 30. She turned 30, 31. She like couldn't pick up her child. It was that bad. And then she forgave her aunt. And then almost within like a week or two, her arthritis completely cleared and she's been fine. Like no signs of arthritis. Isn't that like that blows my mind. This is why we talk about mind, body, soul, spirit, because we're all so connected. And having one area of our life that we're like, oh, I'm just going to be intellectually brilliant. I'm going to be so logical. I'm going to be so wise, etc. Or I'm going to be so physically fit, but we're not doing the work in the other areas. We're going to be living like half strong, where half of us is like super weak, underdeveloped, malnourished, and the other half of us is like this buff person who's like super ready to go take on a trophy. But like you can never win in any game being halfway and 50%. So I love that you said that. Forgiveness can bring physical healing as well as unforgiving can hinder wholeness. Um, hmm. Interesting. Wayne says Dr. Romney says, don't ever forgive somebody that tarnished your soul. I don't know who Dr. Romney is, but I would be curious, his definition of forgiveness. Because if the definition of forgiveness that we're talking about is really like letting go of tethering ourselves to them, then they will always have power over us. What happened that instance will always have power over us because we're holding on to them. And so therefore they can come back anytime. That's what it means to be triggered. In us moving through those suppressed feelings, us forgiving is really unattaching ourselves to that person so that that moment, that experience, that memory, that person does not have power to come in and disrupt us emotionally, disrupt our family, trigger us to the point where I start lashing out at my child because of what happened to me in the past with my dad. It passes. This is what it means to pass down generationally. I experienced something with my dad. I'm feeling it today. I pass it down to my kid because I'm pissed off and I never healed from the past. That's what it means when we're doing the work. It's to heal so that we're not passing something down and like giving everybody else our trauma and acting out. And so just going back to the chat, Ghost Hunter. That's sweet. King Kong, good morning. Ariel, hello. Good to see you. Danny, thank you. Thank you for joining. Mayan, nice to chat with you. Have a blessed day. Hello, I'm literally putting it on my mobile screen now. Good. Come hang out with us. I'm so glad. Forgiveness is part of the healing process. The next step is looking at the stagnation of growth, which the pain held back or twisted, and see how you can notice it. Oh, I love that. Proko by Dank. So forgiveness is part of healing. Is part of the healing process. And then the next step, it's like after we let go, then we can get to growth. And it's true because I love this. I'm so glad you said that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here's the thing that's so interesting. For so ever long as we're holding on to that person and tethered to them, we can't move forward. We're stuck. We're stuck in place. Like we may be able to take like one or two steps forward, but like we're holding on to somebody. So we actually cannot grow. We cannot heal. We cannot move forward until we decide to let go of the past, of whatever happened, because that's not today. That's not now. Especially if what happened to us was when we were 12 years old, 7 years old, 20 years old, and we're 40, 50, 60. For me, 30s. 30s. Someone said 27 the other day, and I was like, nope. But anyways, y'all, we cannot move forward if we are still tethering ourselves. We cannot grow. And there's no way we're going to be able to walk in the fullness of who God created you and me to be so long as we're holding on to that person. Happy day. Our hearts are the soil that we need to cultivate, like the parable of the sower, like a garden. We need to pull out the stones of bitterness and weeds of sin. That is the process of repentance. Oh, wow. That's beautiful. That's so, so good. Y'all, what's it's an easy read. Um, the As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's such a good read, and it talks about effectively our minds being like a garden, and same with our hearts. Like what needs to be pulled out. Um, I love it, Wayne. Intellectually intelligent, emotionally intelligent, physically intelligent, and spiritually intelligent. Yes, those are what we cultivate here on the show. All four of those. Adolfo, good morning. Good to see you. Mako, Mokoko boy, good to see you. Thanks for joining video. Good morning, David. Um, He says, sounds like you've got it all figured out. Nope, I am working it out. And you know what I'm learning from you guys? I feel like I've already learned so much this morning. You can only learn to forgive others when you learn to forgive yourself. What a word. That is bringing it back full circle to our relationship with ourselves. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. I'm messaging my sister who is picking up my darling niece. Okay. Sorry, y'all. Hold on one second. All right. Going back to the chat. The man in the hat, good morning. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person. Forgiveness is about giving yourself permission to move on without the extra weight of pain and anger. Hot dog. That's so true. And it really is, like what have I not forgiven in myself? What have I and then it translates outward, right? Like we cannot look at the other person until we've done the work to look at ourselves. And you know what's so interesting? So much of the pain it was suppressing the suppressed feelings over losing my brother-in-law were trapped underneath shame for me. Like it was pain. It's like there's different trap doors that like when you open the trap door, then you find all the suppressed emotions there. For me, it was shame. For me, it was shame. It was shame over not calling my sister when I got the news. And I could not square off with that. So everything was trapped and bottled up inside me for 6.5 years until I finally was willing to sit with even what happened. Like I just ignored the day that I found out. And then when I finally was brave enough to like go back, I squared off with the woman in the mirror and looked in the mirror and I saw that I didn't call her. And I like wept when I realized that. I just like was sitting on the couch weeping and I like could not believe that I did that. So then after I got there, so there's a book called Letting Go. Man in the Hat. I'm so excited for you to read this. Letting go. There's layers of effectively emotions and there's numerical value associated with all of them. And you can kind of go up or down. So peace is like one of the highest ones. And then joy is really high up there. So like 600, 400. Pride is pretty low. It's like 175. And then shame is the lowest. And then, so shame is like, I think shame is 20. And then grief is 50. And then you kind of move up. But until I got to the very, very bottom of like, what is going on? Shame. I had to get to shame. And then I could start moving up. So once I got to shame, then I could get to grief. And then I could let out all of those suppressed feelings that were effectively like hiding underneath shame. Alyssa, can you answer this? This is your father. Oh, but here, hold on. Sorry, y'all. Hold on one second. They're picking up my baby girl. Okay, thank you. Logistical problems. All right, so did that work? Here, swipe it. All right. Here, I'm sorry, y'all. Hold on one second. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
You too.
Happy Sunday.
You as well.
Love you, girlie. Thanks for coming.
Safe travels home.
Thanks. I'm glad. I know. I've got cake for you. I brought it.
That's all.
Okay, good. All right. Bye. Love you. All right. I wanted to come on time today, but I knew I had a date with her. So, oh well. All right. Coming back to the chat. All right. Thank you guys for being patient. I think that this is part of, honestly, for me, it's like kind of fun to just like do life with you guys. So as long as you don't mind, I don't mind. All right, just going back down to the chat here. Shame is an unhealthy anchor that will keep you stuck. Oh, sorry. I just saw Sebastian. Sorry, guys. I just like stood up. I didn't mean to. Anyways. Okay. Let me go back to this. All those so-called shameful things are not so, not when confusion and experience factored in. I don't really know what you mean by that, but I think I agree with you. Um, Dr. Ronnie Durvasola. She's a clinical psychologist. Interesting. Well, I'd love to hear more about her definition of forgiveness because I'm sure I could learn a lot there. Forgiveness is dry without reconciliation. Making it right will leave you peace. Love is about bonding. So it was so interesting. Happy day. I had a gentleman on here where he was talking about the difference of forgiveness and reconciliation. Um, Somebody said effectively forgiveness is for us, but reconciliation is when the other person is willing to engage, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I love that forgiveness effectively gives you peace and let's go, but it has nothing to do with the relationship. And I think that that's such an important distinction because to your point, Wayne, I think that that might even be what she's talking about. Trying to reconcile with someone who has really tarnished your soul, don't do that, but to be able to reconcile, but to be able to forgive that person. I think forgiveness is irregardless of the other person because it really is about us. It's like an individual pursuit. um, Michael, good to see you. Thank you. Good morning. I just found your channel. Thank you so much for joining. Brian, he says, don't let us interrupt you. Well, I was only, I think, yeah, anyways, I'm so glad that we're all hanging out here. Con, good to see you. Hello. I looked for you the other day to add you back on Facebook, and I have to go find you. Just going down. Devi Roy, hello. Sweet Hand says, what exactly are you ashamed of? You were talking about shame. I was talking about the fact that I was so ashamed of the fact that I didn't call my sister when I found out that her husband had been killed, which like even to say it out loud, it like makes like physically I feel sick. It's like that. Anything I think that we feel shame over, it doesn't really matter what we did. But when we feel shame, that's like the lowest of all emotions. And so we can't move up into even be able to grieve whatever happened if we've got shame around it. So we actually have to come square off with shame in order to then be able to like move up to the next level. Phase G. There's another channel live streaming this. Yes, I've got two live streams. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, but I'm actually going to be. So for those of you who are on the Knowing podcast, I'm going to start streaming on the Knowing podcast, where I'm just going to let my team take care of it moving forward. So I'm only going to be going live probably in March when we launch it's March. Well, probably do it towards the end of the month. So if anybody wants to move over to Christene Marie, I'll just be going live there every day. So Nitrous Boys, thank you guys for looking out for me. I really appreciate it. I know I've got two streams, but we will be stopping on the Knowing podcast. So go hop over there. How do I calm internal warlust? I identify as the warrior archetype. Oh, what an interesting question. One, if there's like a specific framework that you're talking about, I don't know the specific framework. However, what I can say, this is such an interesting question. I have found that it's both the warrior and the lover to cultivate. And the lover, it's like the Athenian way of living, whereas the warrior is the Spartan way. And I've just been captivated by this concept for the last like 4 years. And when I think about it, honestly, I think it's both. I think it's actually harnessing and leveraging both when the time comes. I don't think that warrior part of us is ever to be silenced. I think it's about making sure that the warrior is never in charge and even the lover is never in charge. But we ourselves, like we almost like our ability to step outside and examine and look at, here's what the warrior is saying, here's what the lover is saying. All right, how am I going to act? What time and season is one to be employed? How do I dance between both? I think it's much more so the integration rather than one or the other. And actually, I think that feeling like you need to choose one or the other can be really damaging. So that's what I would say. I would say it's actually not about turning one off. And one isn't better than the other. I think we need the warriors just as much as we need the lovers. And ideally, you're both. And you can pull from both. That's why, well, we won't get into this today, but yeah, I think that that's actually part of the ideal is that you can dance between both when the time is needed and when it is appropriate to do so. Um, just going back down to the chat. Um, yeah, Brian says you can't reconcile with those that won't. So incredibly true. Hashem, good morning. Jason, thank you for coming on. Just because you forgive someone doesn't mean you let them back into your life. Absolutely. Sweet hands. I love you. Irregardless is not a word. It's just regardless. I completely agree. I don't know why. I've always had irregardless as a part of my vocabulary. But you're right. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Brian says, I'm not Jesus, so I'm not forgiving those that caused much pain to me. I'd love to know why. Like, how is it benefiting you to not forgive them? Because at the end of the day, again, forgiveness is for you. So it's not even about them. So I'd be curious, how is it benefiting you to keep that pain so close to you? LRLK3 says, forgiveness frees our heart, mind, body, soul from acidity in our lives and lifts destructive mindset out of life. I love that you said acidity. What a good way to put it. I love it. Brian says it's St. Patrick's Day in March, so I'll be celebrating the entire month. I love that. James, unforgiveness is the root of bitterness. It leads to judging others, and that's actually God's place to do that. Airhead, thank you. Ellen Hoffman. Oh, that is my sweet mama. I will hop over to your new platform. Yay, come hang out with us. Like the father of the prodigal son, he never persuaded his son, but was open to his return. Pursuing someone who sinned against you would make no sense. Happy day. What a good, I've never thought of that. I completely agree. That is so wise. Like the father of the prodigal son. So for those of you who don't know that story, there's a story about this kid who he and his brother are going to get the inheritance of their dad. They've got pretty decent sized inheritance, but you get the inheritance when the father passes. That's like how inheritance works. But the boy goes up and says, hey, I want my inheritance now, which is effectively like, screw you, dad. I wish you were dead. And so his father has to go sell half of everything he owns to give his son his inheritance. And then his son goes off and literally spends all of his money. So it's honestly a rather devastating story. And then it's kind of like flashback to the father. And the father is eagerly and anxiously waiting for his son to come home because I think he kind of knew what would happen. And, we think about like, wouldn't it have been amazing of the father to go get the son and like bring him home and take care of him? But it was like the father did not go pursue his son, but he was waiting. And so I just like, man, that is a powerful, powerful lesson, Happy Day, of like, wait for them to come back because they will. And here's the thing that might even be more painful. They may not come back in our lifetime, but that we were going back to the very beginning of this, of like what they meant for evil, God meant for good. So that person leaving, that person abandoning us, that person betraying us, and maybe they don't come back. Maybe we actually don't want them to, but the thing is that can I be okay after this happens? Or is my entire life now ruined because of what that person did to me? And y'all, that's what it means when we talk about forgiveness. It means you no longer have power over me. I'm no longer orienting my thoughts around you. I'm no longer like, why would we want to think about that which caused us pain? But if we're so tethered to and tied to and attached, to use your word, attached to that person and to that experience, we cannot help but have that be, honestly, it kind of becomes the thing that's at the helm of the ship and kind of guides our lives. If forgiveness doesn't come from a true and sincere place, and of course prayer, as Jesus said, if you don't forgive, you won't be forgiven. Gilly, thank you for coming on here. Man in the Hat, James 4:10. We are to judge others to protect ourselves from evil. It is referred to as discernment. Jesus said, you will be judged by how you judge, not do not judge. Interesting. That's a really good perspective. Y'all, this is why I love hearing from everybody, because everybody has these different angles and it's really, really helpful. YouTube, oh no, mom slipped on ice a couple weeks ago and now she has a small pocket of fluid in her skull. Please pray for mom. Oh no. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Gosh, I would love to pray with her or for her tonight. Ellen Hoffman says, new word, irregardless. I love it. Sender V, good morning. Glad to see you. I love this. Balance between warrior and lover is what builds solid foundations of defend and protect and faith and hope and love. Builds a better versions of ourselves each day. I love it. Okay, just scrolling down. Lewis, good morning. Wyatt's. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but thanks for joining. We're talking about spiritual intelligence this morning. Thomas, I'm in pain every day. Wow. Physical pain or spiritual pain. I'm so sorry to hear that. All right, y'all. The man in the hat says, remove the log from your own eye before trying to remove the toothpick from others' eyes. So good. E-Man Castlewall, good to see you. Lucian, hello. Wyatt says, what is the Knowing Podcast? So the Knowing Podcast is, well, I guess honestly, technically what we're doing right now is the Knowing Show. The Knowing Podcast is the channel, and the Knowing Show is really dedicated to the cultivation of human intelligence. You know, we're all obsessed with artificial intelligence these days. And what is artificial intelligence is ultimately replacing so much of what has been what we've assigned as humans, like our value as humans. So this is interesting. You know, we've really assigned so much of our value to the intellect, but AI is coming in and kind of replacing all of that. So then where does our value lie? What makes us human? And so on the Knowing Show, it's about cultivating just beyond the intellectual, and not just the intellectual intelligence, but emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, physical intelligence. And really what's so interesting, as of right now, there's, you know, the AI doesn't have a fleshly body. And so when you think about the tenets of what makes us human, it's like, are we cultivating that? Or have we just spent so much of our lives tending to the very thing that AI is coming in and replacing? So interesting. But that's kind of what we talk about on the show. Wyatt says spiritual intelligence. Yeah. And so Thomas says mental. Oh, wow. Mental pain. You know, it's spiritual as well. Well, I'm so glad you're here, Thomas. You know, one of the things, so I'm actually going to drop the link of the lesson we read today. Every morning we go through A Course in Miracles, and it's about effectively retraining our minds to see through the lens of God, to undo these old programs that keep us in mental and emotional pain and spiritual pain. There's a lot from the past that we were taught about, let's say, God, that frankly isn't. It's not who God is. And God wants to reveal himself to you and me personally. But we have to so often undo those old narratives to almost like create space to be able to almost like cleanse and empty ourselves. We were talking earlier about the lymphatic system that washes out our body from toxins. We were talking about the glymphatic system, which washes out the brain from toxins through sleep and even deep breathing, with the pineal gland getting involved. And then there's nothing that is for spiritual cleansing or emotional cleansing. So part of what we're doing here on the show is like, what are some practices? What are things that we can do to really do the work to clean out our emotional and spiritual systems to then be able to learn something new? Spiritual intelligence. Wyatt's just said, what is that? I think of spiritual intelligence as like, just like how we've got a mind, we've got an intellect, and we've got data stored there. And we can cultivate it and add new programs and increase and improve our intelligence. So we've got old data that we know that's been stored there, and we can improve it and cultivate and add new data in and like update our systems effectively. And that's what I'm thinking with spiritual intelligence. We have this old data about who God is. And a lot of it, frankly, may actually not even be spot on anymore. Some of it's outdated, some of it's old, some of it needs to be refreshed and optimized based on new experiences that we've had, that we've learned. And so us cultivating spiritual intelligence, it's like examining the old data that's there and then revamping our programs for it to be kind of like accurate information. All right, y'all, I need to hop off this morning. Thank you so much for joining. I said this earlier that we're actually going to be moving away from the Knowing Podcast platform and just be going to the Christene Marie platform. And we're just going to be hanging out there over the next, we're probably going to make that switch at the end of this month, since it's March today. So we'll be making that change at the end of this month, and would love to have you come and join us over there if you would like to. As I loved this conversation, it was so good. Thank you for joining and just being active and engaged. I learned a lot this morning, so thank you for coming on. I will be live again tonight. I'm flying. I actually haven't even signed in. I have a flight tonight, which I anticipate I'll probably be on. Let's see, when do I land? And then I'll tell you what time I'll be on tonight. Right. I land. Oh, I have a layover. Love that. This is going to be a long day. Realistically, I will probably be live tonight, probably 11 p.m. Eastern. So it's going to be a late night for me. So come hang out if you want. 11 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 around that time. Maybe, yeah, around then. But oh, Sammy, I'm so glad to hear you. Please know I'm here. I'm so glad. I'm struggling with my breathing due to my conversation. So please know I'm so grateful for your voice. And I'm so glad you're here. For those of you who don't know, Sammy is a friend of the Knowing Show, and he's honestly, he struggled. He got into an accident 2 years ago, Sammy, and has been suffering from being quadriplegic ever since. And so, Sammy, we're just so grateful that you're here and love you. I'm going to say a prayer for us and just kind of wrap up today. I'm going to pray for your mom. And Sammy, I'd love to pray for you. Father, I thank you for today. God, thank you for your presence. God, thank you for who you are. Father, I just pray for the sweet mama who fell and she's got fluid in her skull. God, I can't imagine. It must be so hard to watch. And God, I just thank you for your presence. God, I ask that it would be present in that room with this family. God, in Jesus' name, Father, I pray for Sammy, God, that he would experience your peace today. God, I thank you for every single person who joined us on this beautiful Sunday, March 1st, day 60 of the year. And I pray, God, that we would remember that you are our hope, you are our strength, you are the love with which we forgive. In Jesus' name. Y'all, thank you for joining.